Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to welcome you today to the Employee Benefit Research Institute 2024 Financial Wellbeing Symposium. And I want to welcome both our in-person group here in Washington, D.C., but I also want to welcome the over 400 people who are joining us by live stream. And we're going to try to make this a great experience for everyone. So I'm Barb Marder. I'm the CEO of EBRI, the Employee Benefit Research Institute. We have a great day planned for you. For those of you who have been following the agenda closely, I'm sure you all are, we made a last-minute switch to try to beat Hurricane Helene. Our keynote speaker, Suze Orman, was going to be in the after-lunch session, but we moved her to first thing this morning with the hope that we can get through our chat without the winds or other things that are going to mess with the internet. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that we can get through that this morning. But I also, I really want to thank our sponsors that are shown here. We could not do it without you. These sponsors support the EBRI Financial Wellbeing Research Center and our survey, and these are very important sponsors to us. So thank you again so much for all of your support. Many of you are here today, so thank you. So I'd like to get right to our fireside chat. Hi, Suze.
Hi, Barbara. We got a little break in the weather, so I think the gods are looking down on all of us and saying, let's do this.
Let's do it. We'll move fast. And again, thank you so much for being with us and for rearranging your schedule to try to beat the hurricane. So really, I think Suze really needs no introduction, but I'll do just a very short introduction. Suze is a financial advisor, author, and podcast host. She founded the Suze Orman Financial Group in 1987. Her work as a financial advisor gained notability with the Suze Orman Show, which ran on CNBC for many years. And Suze has written 10 consecutive New York Times bestsellers about personal finance, including The Ultimate Retirement Guide for 50 Plus, Winning Strategies to Make Your Money Last a Lifetime. She was named twice to the Time 100 list of influential people, has won 2 Emmy Awards and 8 Gracie Awards. And I didn't know what a Gracie Award was, so I looked it up. And it's an award that recognizes exemplary programming created by women, for women, and about women in all facets of media and entertainment. Welcome, Suze.
Thank you, Barbara. Let's do it.
So I'm going to start off with a question. So at today's symposium, we've brought together multi-stakeholders across the industry. We have employers, we have service providers, we have nonprofits, and folks involved in policy. They're all passionate about financial well-being and how employers can really help create more financial well-being for their employees. But even with all of that support, you note 3 internal obstacles to wealth building. You mentioned fear, shame, and anger. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And what do you think employers should know about their employees?
Yeah. I have a saying that you can never solve a financial problem with money. And so many times we think that money and even education about money is the fix to everything. But what I've learned over the 40 years now that I've been doing this is that there is a reason why people spend more than they should be spending. They don't save. They don't put money away for retirement. Why they keep getting themselves into credit card debt. And what I've realized is that it's the emotions of a person that dictates what they do with their money. If you think about it, Barbara, money can't do anything without you. You're the one who goes out and works for a paycheck. You're the one who decides, do you save it? Do you invest it? What do you do with it? So given the fact that money is just really a physical manifestation of you, if you think about it, then if your money is a chaotic mess, that means you're a chaotic mess. And most people, when they're afraid of something, or when they're ashamed of something, or whatever it may be, right? Especially if they're angry, what do? They go out and they take that out of their money. They take it, they spend it, and all of those things.
That's so interesting. And let's go a little bit further on that. So in a recent interview that I listened to, I think it was with Chris Wallace, you mentioned that the goal of money is security.
Yes.
That's the ultimate goal. Yet you note that 75% of Americans don't even have $400 to cover an unexpected emergency. How do you think we got here, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, even though I think that the goal of money is for you to be secure, that's not what everybody else thinks the goal is. They think the goal of money is to have a fancy car so they can impress people that they don't even know or like at a stop sign. So they can dress up and make everybody think that they're doing better than they are. Very few people will tell you, what are you spending money on and everything? They're not going to tell you, well, my first priority is to put it away for retirement, have an emergency account. No. What they first do is they make sure if they buy a house, their house has all these good things in it. And so people really think money defines them versus they're defining their money. So the problem is the more money they make, the more money they spend. And all of you in the audience should think about this. Do you remember the day? I do. I remember the day when I was a waitress at the Buttercup Bakery in Berkeley, California, from the age of 23 to 30, making only $5,000 a year. And I was making it. And I thought, oh, if I could only make 10,000, then it was like, once I made 10,000, I had to make 20, I had to make 40. So the more you make, the more you spend. So given that it's so easy to spend money now, since the advertisers are so great in getting your money from you, it's very difficult to say no. Say no to your children, you can't afford it. Say no to yourself, you think you work so hard, you deserve to go on vacation, even though you have to put it on your credit card. So we live in an age of consumerism, not in an age of financial protectionism.
Absolutely. So we have employers and service providers in the room who are looking for strategies that they can use to help their employees save. What do you see out there that's interesting to you?
Well, obviously, the most interesting thing to me is an emergency savings account, given that I'm one of the co-founders also of Secure Save. Now, why, out of all the years that I've been doing this, and I never, ever entered any fintech company or fintech company or anything like that, why 4 years ago did I decide to do that? Because I realized, and this came from a personal experience, by the way, I had been being hired by major corporations and being paid millions of dollars to create financial wellness programs for the employees. I'll never forget one major employer with 19,000 employees. I created over 100 videos of me answering every possible question that one of their employees could have about their own benefits. And that if they had a question, they could just go on and I would answer it. How many people went on and watched those videos? Not one. And then I started to realize, oh my God, we're spending a fortune on all these wellness programs and everything. And when you don't have money, because then I started to interview people. And when you don't have money, you don't want to be educated about something that you don't have. It actually scares you. It repels you. It's not like, oh, I need to learn how to do this. And who teaches you about the money at the workplace? So, and this happened at Gulfstream. when I was there and I got to talk to all the employees, I went to all, I think it was 19 the venues that they had. Anyway, where do you get your financial information from? They did not say they're HR people. They said, oh, John, who works on this project, and Jim, who works here. So they all were telling each other what to do because they felt comfortable doing that. And they were all making the same mistakes. Then when I asked, why don't you go to your employer? Why don't you do the programs? They go, I don't want my employer to know everything that's going on in my life, Susie. Things aren't really great. I don't want them to know that I've claimed bankruptcy. I don't want them to know that I have to take out a payday loan to keep going. So there was this inherent fear. Oh, there we go. One of the 3 internal obstacles to wealth again. These inherent fear and shame and even anger at your situation that keeps you from being more and therefore having more.
That's so interesting. And just a little spoiler alert. Sorry, Craig, I might be spoiling something that you're going to say later. In the EBRI Financial Wellbeing Survey, we asked both employers and employees, what are the biggest barriers to taking advantage of the programs that your employer offers? And the employers were saying, well, they don't really understand them, or it's the cost. But I believe it was the second highest reason the employees gave was privacy. I don't want to share that information with my employer. And, they, especially, hearing from employers, EAP programs, what a wonderful benefit that employees don't take advantage of. They're afraid that their employer might find out that they took advantage of it. So it's such an interesting challenge for us to overcome, to make these offerings, these benefits accessible and feeling safe.
So, you have to look at what is it that the employee really, really needs. And the employees that I think you're mainly targeting the needs at are the employees who are maybe making $50,000 a year or even $75,000 a year. And in most parts of the United States, if you're making even $100,000 a year after taxes, you have 2 or 3 kids, you cannot afford to live. You can never afford now to buy a home. I mean, look at the prices of home. And even though interest rates are coming down, that's not going to make it so that the price of homes come down. The prices of homes are still going to continue to go up. So you have to look at what do they need. And what they need, in my opinion, which is why I joined Secure Save, is they need a place that they can go to know that they have money in case their car breaks down, in case there's a medical emergency. No matter what it is, they need a place they can go to, and they don't have a place, especially after they have maxed out their credit cards at an exorbitant interest rate today. That's making it even harder for them to be able to make their daily bills. And all of that, by the way, results in them not putting enough money away in retirement accounts, even if you match, because they're afraid that if they do put money in the 401k or 403b or TSP, whatever it may be, they won't be able to access it. And if they have to access it, they have to access it via a loan. And here's what's so sad. Out of the thousands of people I've interviewed over all the years, they don't know the ramifications of if they take a loan, what happens if they get sick, they lose their job, they have to leave. They don't even know the ramifications of it. And in their mind, they're making more money on that money because they're paying them back a higher interest rate than they are, but it's still lower than what they're paying on their credit cards, and they have it all wrong. But they don't understand that. So what do they want? What do they want, Barbara? They want a place that they have, that if something goes wrong, with a push of a button, they can get their money. It's out of plan, so they don't have to ask any part of their employment that they need money. That if they lose their job, they can, or quit, they can take it with them. And they need that if something happened to them, they died, their beneficiaries would get that money. And they also need, some people need, a place where nobody knows that they have that money. Because once family members know that there's extra money or whatever, it's very difficult to say, no, I don't want to give it to you. So we say no to relatives who need money, even though we don't have it, right? Versus yes, we say yes to relatives that don't even need it or want it, but you give it to them, versus no out of fear that they won't love you anymore. So you have to learn to say yes to yourself.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I wanted to just follow up. One of the things that you're really passionate about that I'm not sure employees understand as well is in terms of for retirement savings, pre-tax versus Roth. I know you're very passionate about this. Do you want to just share your thinking on that?
Yeah, I can read articles. One just came out yesterday about how if you make a lot of money, the only thing you should be doing are pre-tax retirement accounts. What's wrong with some people who just do numbers and they say, look, the numbers show this, that in the long run, financially, you would be better if you're in a high tax bracket to do a pre-tax retirement account. What they don't see, that I now see 40 years into this, what people actually do with their money when they're 60, 70, and 80 years of age, how absolutely upset they are that they have all this money in a pre-taxed account, but yet if they take it out, they're going to have to pay ordinary taxes on it if it's a large sum of money. If they die, their kids are going to have to pay ordinary income taxes on it. So how do I feel about it? If you just do a Roth 401k and a Roth IRA, if you're eligible to do so, your money starts to compound for you. And in the long run, all of it is tax-free. You could pay off your mortgage, $300,000 in one lump sum. If it was in a pre-tax one, that $300,000 would be totally taxable. And when you do pre-tax, all right, you get a tax write-off, but that money is compounding and compounding and compounding. And in the end, the government just gets more in taxes. Now, I don't know what the tax brackets are going to be in your lifetime when you're older, what the government is going to do, but I do have a law of money, which is invest in the known versus the unknown. I know if I invest in a Roth today and I give up that tax write-off, because what do you do with that tax write-off, people? You spend it, you don't invest it, you're not responsible with it, especially if you have low sums of money, meaning you're not making a lot of money, so you would probably be better off with your standard deduction than the tax write-off it's going to give you. But low salaried employees don't understand that, and they get confused because they think, oh, the employer will only match in a pre-tax account, so therefore I have to be in a pre-tax account. They don't understand that they could do a Roth and still get the match. So there's so much confusion, but the best explanation I could give you, really, because we don't have a whole lot of time, is I do have a podcast, as Barbara mentioned, called Women and Money. There is a podcast that's called Don't Be Partners with Uncle Sam on there. I think it was around April. You might want to listen to it, where I do the numbers and I show you why I believe that without a shadow of a doubt.
Great. I think a lot of us will be very interested to listen to that. So I have one last question for you, and then we'll open up to see if any of the folks in the room have questions for you. In the EBRI Greenwald Research Retirement Confidence Survey, when we ask employees, who do you go to for financial advice? The highest response, 40%, is friends and family. So to the point you just made, we have a lot of people going to friends and family who really don't know much more than they do. You've mentioned that 95% of people are somewhat financially illiterate. And while there are lots of financial advisors out there who can help, we need financial advisors that people can relate to. And in the survey that we're talking about today, when we asked employers, what are you doing from a DEI perspective to make sure you're addressing diverse needs? The number one and number two answers were, we're going to make financial coaches and professionals available who reflect the demographics of our employees, so gender, race, ethnicity. It sounds like a good start, but what are your thoughts on that? And what else can we be doing to improve financial literacy for all of our workers?
Interesting. I like that idea, by the way. At first I was shaking my head. It's like, no, they're just not going to get a financial coach. But I just want to say something. Does the financial coach, regardless of their ethnicity or anything, do they understand money? Do they have financial problems? Do they have a great retirement account? Like, just because somebody is a financial coach doesn't mean that they do what they tell other people to do. And I just want you to be aware of that. So you better be interviewing your financial coaches big time. Also, I'm just going to go off topic for 1 second. Why am I as successful as I have been? Why have I sold over 30 million copies of my books? Why have I been the #1 fundraiser for PBS television over the past God knows how many years, raising over $300 million for them? Why can people in India, Australia, China, Latina, why do they relate to me? They relate to me because they know I was like them. They knew I was a waitress for 30 years. They know I don't dress like Wall Street. They know that I speak Suze speak. I don't speak in terms that are financial or whatever. So they can relate to me because they know I am them. So the coaches that all of you hire, you better really think about what makes a great coach, not just a degree, not just because they have the right things to say, but they have to speak in truths, not just words. And I speak in truths, and you can feel it as I'm speaking to you right now. So what can we do about it? You can try, you can learn from mistakes, and then eventually we'll discover what's really important, which is why your organization, Barbara, is so vital. It is so vital. So I hope everybody's donating to you truthfully, because you have to understand the truth behind what you think is going on. Most people who are running all the programs, they don't remember, or maybe they never were in a situation where they didn't have money and they had to take their pennies out of their jar to pay off their credit cards or whatever it may be. So speak in truth to them. And really, again, I'm just saying this because I know it's what people want. If you don't have an emergency savings account, and I don't care what company you use to get one, but if you don't have an emergency savings account offered for your employees, in my opinion, you are missing out on one of the greatest benefits that not only do they need, but they want, which is why when we do it, even if we have a 50,000 employee company, 60 to 70% of the people sign up within 1 week. That is unheard of across every company that Secure Safe offers this to. Do you have your programs when you offer something that 60 or 70% people sign up right away? Probably not. So what does that tell me? It tells me that this is something that people not only need, in our opinion, but they want. Give people what they want, so one day they'll want what they need, which is a retirement account.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I want to open it up to the room. There are microphones of one sort or the other on your tables. It either looks like this and you push the button, or there's other microphones. Who would like to ask Suze her first question? Greg.
Does it work? Yes, it does. Thank you, Suze. Really appreciate that. I had a question about emergency funds. The name emergency implies that it's being used for an unplanned expense. However, experience is a lot of people who actually do have money coming out of their paychecks may not be necessarily using it for emergencies. They might be using it for vacations and other things. Is there anything that is able to be done to really just encourage that it is in fact being used for intended purposes.
Yeah. What would be interesting is I know Devin Miller, our CEO of Secure Save, is on a panel, I think later on today, to ask him that question. But we can tell you that all of the people, now major corporations have signed up with us over these 4 years. All of the people that have an emergency savings account, guess what? They don't touch it. And if they do, they touch it once, like $187.36. Also in the program, it will ask, remember, this is for an emergency. Are you sure you want to take it out? Is this truly an emergency? So we reinforce throughout our system anyway, is it an emergency, to get rid of that tendency to just say, I'm going to take out the money. What we have found out is that what is the number one or number two expense? Car breaking down. Sometimes inflation. But what's so fascinating is after they have taken it out once, they continue to do it. And here's the other thing, because they're not seeing the money in their paycheck, it goes directly from their paycheck into their own account, FDIC insured. They see all of that, and the employer is matching it, which is how a good ESA program works. What's interesting is they usually start out with $25 a paycheck, and for some reason, they start to then increase it to $37.50 a paycheck. So what's important is, and this speaks to what you asked, if you just give people money without the right education or programming behind it as they're doing it, then you're just giving them money. Once you teach people to save, and they're saving on their own, they then have been taught, oh, I have the ability to save money. Look, I have $500 for the first time in my life. They then feel what that feels like, and that's when they increase their monthly paycheck. They get, honoring their employer, loyalty to their employer, because most employers, and everybody can choose their own program up to the employer, but if an employee contributes $25, the employer contributes $3 or $5 for every paycheck. That's a 12 to 20% return on their money. Now we have changed the psychology without educating them with words. We are changing the psychology because they get to feel what it feels like to have money that they don't have to ask anybody for, and then they get addicted to that. So if you do it correctly with the right software behind it and the way the program works, at least ours anyway, I'm telling you, they're not going to take the money out and spend it on something other than a true emergency.
Good to hear. We do have one question that came in online that I think is great. So this will be the last question for you, Suze. Okay, it says, if Suze were czar of the 401k world today, which maybe you will be one day, Suze, what would be one or two of the most important changes that you would make to what's happening today?
Well, I have to tell you, I don't have really a big problem with any of the 401ks or 403bs. I really don't. It's, the big problem is, what should people be investing their money in? And so many times everybody just goes to a target date mutual fund, or they put all of it into the Standard & Poor's 500 index, or whatever it may be, or they were all in long-term bond funds thinking they were nearing retirement a year or two ago, and they thought their money would be safe, but they didn't understand that when interest rates were going up, the value of those bond funds would go down, and if they needed that money at that time, they would be obliterated. So the true structure of the 401k and the matching of it, I think, is perfect really the way it is. People understand it and it works. What people don't understand is, how should they invest? And I know people think that you should invest according to age, and that is not true. You should invest according to your economic situation at the time you're investing and what's happening in the economy at the time that you're investing. So if we could somehow educate people on that and get them to understand that, which I do on the Women in Money podcast, all of you should have everybody listening to my podcast. 600, are you kidding me? I just have to say this, Barbara. When I first started doing this back in 2001, my main question to me was, how do I get out of debt? Debt, FICO score, debt, FICO. After all these years, now everybody writing me for the Women in Money podcast, and it's for everybody smart enough to listen, by the way, because it's not just for women. You can't separate women, men. You can't do that. Anyway, they want to know what to do with the $3 million they have in their 401k, the 2 homes they own. And these are from people who had nothing when they first started. So you can educate them, but maybe you just give them the right resource to go to where there's something where somebody just wants to educate them and not make money off of them. Just a thought.
Great. Well, thank you so much. How about a round of applause for Suze? Thank you.